Cool. All right. So we should be live now. Let's just give it a few seconds to catch up. And then what I'll do is I'll kind of jump in here and make sure everybody in the chat has a chance to let us know if we look good and sound good. I don't know if we want them to tell us if we look good or not, because
probably not.
Yeah, that's opening some doors, man, you know? Yeah. All right. Well, it looks like we are live. So welcome everybody to Marauder Mondays Live. Obviously, I'm Magic Prepper, and tonight I have a special guest. It is Ryan Jeske from the Prescott Caliber Club. I hope you guys understand. I brought Ryan here to discuss firearms, because who doesn't want to talk about that, especially when it comes to Marauders, right? So
absolutely.
Right. And honestly, I always try to rely on someone who has more knowledge than I do and more experience. And I'll be honest with you, I know for a fact that Ryan does a lot more shooting than I get to get out and do. I know Ryan knows his firearms, his components, his design processes and everything else a lot better than I do. So I wanted to bring him on board. He is an industry insider. He's in the business. And just so you guys know, especially on the mods, Grayman, let's see, Northern Girl Hobbies, thank you so much for being here. If you guys can just link to Ryan's channel tonight. We can't actually link to his website because that's a no-no in YouTube land. Of course, right? And if you guys understand why, it means that it's probably somewhere you want to check out at some point. So
exactly. All the good stuff is the stuff they're hiding.
That's the no-no stuff. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, real quick, I guess I'll just let everybody know. I mean, when it comes to firearms, like I said, Ryan's in the business. He also is a manufacturer, so he has a lot of design experience and knowledge when it comes to being able to put things together in a quality way, and has a lot of insight as to, what would be capable and what is practical for things that we would want to use in the sense of self-defense during an emergency situation. And that's why I wanted to bring him on here to hopefully share some of that information with everybody on the chat tonight. And obviously, if you have questions or if there's anything you're not sure about, we'll do our best to address things and, get into the chat as well. I just want you to understand that because of the platform we're on, there are limitations as to like what we can or can't do in the sense of suggestions and stuff like that. And Ryan and I will work our best way to, get the communication across without crossing any lines, hopefully. Okay. So,
yep.
Yeah, it's a dance. And Ryan, you've been doing the dance for a while now.
Yeah, I'm not doing very good at it. I don't really pull my punches on the channel. I just run with it. And if you look at my monetization page, every single one is limited. It's just one after. I just don't even care anymore. I'm just trying to do what I do and put it out there. But just so everybody else out there knows, if you don't know who I am, I have an emergency preparedness store. I'm an FFL. So I have my federal licensing. I'm a manufacturer and SOT holder. So I can do all kinds of cool stuff like select fire things and stuff like that. Mostly what I do, though, is retail emergency preparedness stuff. And I'm into all kinds of, whether it's solar power, freeze dryers, firearms, I don't know what you name it,
armor,
everything in the mix. Yeah. So that's kind of what I do.
Yeah. And honestly, Ryan and I linked up way back in the early days of my channel and the early days of his channel. Yeah. I mean, it was back in 2019. Yeah. So it's been a minute,
It's weird. It's weird. It's been that long already.
No, it's crazy, man. And I'm really glad to see things progressing on your side. I'm glad to see that, we're able to maintain a good relationship and still keep in touch. But it is unfortunate that due to certain circumstances, I assume, Ryan's channel has definitely not gotten the attention that I feel it deserves. So make sure, if you guys get a chance, check out his channel, and from there you can get access to all the other information regarding what he does, which might be able to help you out in your preparedness. And then if you either join me over on Patreon, or if you're part of the MAGIC, which is completely free, which you access through my website, I do send out newsletters, and there's definitely information about stuff like that in those newsletters as well that could be beneficial to you. So I just wanted to mention that. All right. Hey, WV Prepared Mind. Good to see you. All right. So we got some good people in the house. Awesome mods. Absolutely. I appreciate you all. We'll say hi to some people. I see Donna is here. Good to see you. Abracadabra is here. Exile Reviews is here. DIY Dad. Jennifer Cruz. Let's see here. There's Monashi Prepping. So Lots of hellos. Irish Rebel, thank you so much for the super chat. Very unnecessary, but it always appreciated. And I know that, I always say it, guys, if you want to help yourself first, please do. It's always more important for you to be prepared than for me to have, additional funds over here. But I do greatly appreciate it, okay? And Brenda Bodwin says, if I'm defending myself, I won't care what I use. Firearm, rock, ink pen, 2x4. If I can reach it, it's a self-defense device. Well, what I can say about that, Brenda, is that is an often used argument for why things shouldn't be as, what's the word? Hush hush when it comes to certain subjects, because you're right. I mean, just about anything can be used as self-defense. And for some reason, there's certain items that are scrutinized more heavily than others. So, yeah. So let's see. I want to go ahead and get started with just a couple of kind of like talking points that I thought Ryan could definitely help me out with here, because there's some stuff that's been going around the community, and there's a lot of new firearms owners and a lot of new preparedness-minded people in the community now. And I feel like it's a good opportunity to reach out to those people and try to, give them some of that good knowledge, some of that wisdom, right? So Ryan, one thing I wanted to ask you about was when people are out there and they're shopping around and they're thinking about, buying, a firearm for self-defense, and they're worried about the way things are going, and they want to have something that's capable and can get them through a long-term SHTF event, let's say, and they're not really sure what they need to get, because it's easy to say, hey, we should have, try to get an AR-15. Okay, well, you can get it at $500 AR-15. You can get a $3,000 AR-15. Why? Like, where should they be looking in the sense of like what's budget friendly but not trash? Like what is going to get them in the door to where they'll be happy and have something they can rely on, but not literally throwing their money into the garbage? Like what price range and what tier are we kind of looking at?
Yeah, well, when I mean, that's a broad question if you're talking about different platforms, but I'm gonna kind of just the standard thing that we all carry here in America. I think we all know which firearm that is, the rifle, and that that thing is crazy because you guys see them out there for $450 or $3,800, $5,000. These crazy numbers for an AR, and the thing is I don't want to say most, because some of the specific, like, a little bit higher end parts are custom made by these places, but really most of the stuff comes out of a lot of the same places. They're made out of a lot of the same materials. And so you can get away building a really, really solid AR for really cheap. I mean, I am most of the time, the answer to a lot of your questions is going to be the same thing. You have to take it out there and beat it up and practice with it and use it and spend time behind it to really make sure, because you could go buy a $5,000 firearm and get home and something doesn't work. I mean, you and I have had tons of discussions about AR-10s. I want to like them so bad, and everyone I have so many problems with, and I'm just like, man, other people aren't like that, and they're not cheap guns, and then somebody will buy just a real base one and it'll run or whatever. So that's a big piece to it too, is getting out there and running. You got to be comfortable. I mean, people always want to say, they got the best gear, the best setup and whatever, but if you don't know how to run it, or you're not comfortable running it, it's going to be trouble probably.
No, that makes sense. And, I guess where I would, try to kind of steer this question is, so, obviously building stuff yourself is definitely an approach, but there is a large investment in tools and the necessary components you need to start that process. And there's also the lack of experience behind someone putting together something maybe for the first time and then expecting it to work properly right away, and then not having the prior knowledge to troubleshoot and, changing out buffer weights or whatever else it might be that's causing their issues. So I guess, what I would say is like couple of my frustrations with home builds, in the sense of trying to be budget oriented, was especially when I first started, because that was some interesting times.
A lot of springs shot around the garage.
Yeah. I'm like, what's this spring? I don't think you need it. So, exactly. But what I'll say is, there's a couple things that I think people don't think of when it comes to that. One of them is that the resale value is negligent. I mean, it's really hard to offload something maybe that you built yourself and that you don't necessarily like at some point, and then you want to try to trade up to get something better. And you invested a lot of money into this project, and it no longer has any of that value, because it's somebody else isn't really always going to be willing to take the risk on your thing you made. You know what I mean?
Your build. Absolutely. Yeah. That's definitely something to think about.
Yeah. And then the other thing is the reliability aspect. If there is anything wrong, it's always just you. The buck stops at you, you know, and it's up to you to fix the problem. So, and obviously you can get somebody who's trained involved, and they can obviously troubleshoot that for you and everything else. But I guess, you know, I think for the average person, let's say somebody who doesn't have any of that affiliation or any of that, motivation to like go that extra mile. Just like at a rant, like a decent price point for where you would start looking for a manufactured based AR-15 and feel good about it, you know, being able to be reliable.
Yeah, I think in the $700 range right now. It's going to be a little weird right now, but I'm starting to see stuff pop back out there. 650, 700, your Diamondbacks, your things like that. There's always pieces that you're going to want to look at when you get those guns. Because like I said, even if you get a $5,000 rifle, you may get it back and something screwed up and it doesn't run. So there's stuff you want to look at with them. And there's kind of a few characteristics you'll find, like if they didn't stake the castle nut, or, you know, just these little things. If they didn't do that, that's something to look at, and why. And that's probably where and how they save money. So, you know, like I said, you may not want to get into building, but it will help you out in the long run, not just financially, but in the long run, you won't have to be like, oh shoot, what happened here? You know, you can move and fix your gun. But I'm thinking 750, somewhere right in that range right now, seems to be a decent point where it's an entry point. It's not a polymer lower or some kind of thing where there's an issue where, you know, you have to worry about something like that. So.
And so you would avoid like the bare minimum, or like the bottom of the barrel if possible, just in the sense of, you know, maintaining some form of reliability.
It's usually in materials, honestly. If you look at it, when you see this big difference, you'll see one lower for $49.99, another one for $99.99. You look at them, one's a polymer lower, and they're doing that because they don't have enough aluminum upper or lowers, and so they're trying to make up for it somehow, and they're coming up with all kinds of stuff. And I'm not saying those are terrible, but those definitely aren't something. I mean, I've seen guys do them in full auto and just rip the gun apart. You know, they're definitely not the same thing. So that's what I look for. I always make sure aluminum, at the very least, if you're running polymer, some kind of reinforcement. I've heard some good stuff with that. I don't know exactly what they use, but in some of the edges, they put some metal and stuff in there to reinforce them. And I've heard some okay stuff with that. But a lot of times it depends what you're going to use it for too. Maybe on a 9mm, it would be totally okay.
Interesting.
Whereas if you're running a binary with a 458 SOCOM, maybe not.
You know, right. I don't know if my shoulder would even hold up to that necessarily. So I had my run-in with a 450 Bushmaster in the past, and that was enough for me, honestly. So yeah,
that's a beast. We did them in full auto one time, the SOCOM, and it was like you couldn't even keep your feet on the ground. It was crazy.
No, I honestly, I don't think I've had another rifle give me a worse shoulder bruise than that 450 Bushmaster. So, and which is crazy because you think with the semi-auto and the recoil system, it would dampen it, but no, I mean, bolt action was a lot more comfortable, to be honest. So
yeah, that's funny. Sometimes that break, you know. Sorry, I got flies running around in here.
Oh no, all good. I mean, you know, welcome to the party, right? That's where we're at.
Yeah, heck yeah.
When everything is, you know, a pile of crap, that's what happens. You know, there's flies everywhere.
Yep. Exactly.
Exactly. I do want to say, you know, Motoshi Prepping says they're really learning a lot from this group as a newbie. Cheers. And I think that's awesome. And that's exactly, you know, why I wanted to have this chat with you, Ryan, because there's so many new people to preparedness that they haven't really, you know, game planned or thought through a lot of these things that maybe you and I have lost sleep over, you know?
Yeah.
And I'll admit, you know, 10 years ago, I was a forum junkie where I'd just sit there and be like, oh my gosh, you know?
Yeah.
And then you find out after 10 years, you go back to the forums and the same exact topics are still being discussed.
Same things, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, wow, you know, we've come so far.
Yeah, exactly. Same issues, no real solutions either to so many of the issues.
Right. Well, you know,
which I think tells us there aren't solutions. There aren't always concrete solutions, you know. A lot of times it's what's best for you. Yeah.
And that's how it works. Mm. I do want to kind of let everybody know that Ryan is kind of one of my go-tos when it comes to discussing the problems I'm having and making decisions or troubleshooting any errors or problems that I'm having. And he will tell you that I have really struggled to have like a love for the AR-15 platform. I've often, pushed, 308 and, larger frame receivers on myself because of reasons, which I'm sure you guys might have seen a video I put out a long time ago about. But and he kind of walked me through the whole process and said, "Look, man, here's what I need you to do because I've built a lot of my own ARs and I've been through the gambit and I still haven't found that sweet spot." And he basically advised me, get out there, buy something from a quality manufacturer. You don't have to break the bank, but get something decent. Go, put a ton of rounds through it and then come back to me and then let's talk, So I am physically doing that here soon. I actually got an M400 tread recently.
Picked some of the wrong years to be buying all that ammo.
I know it's that's why I flip inventory sometimes. I change things out. The best part about firearms ownership is that you have a bank full of cash sitting in your safe. And
absolutely.
Yeah, and you can change things out if you want to try out different things or new platforms, whatever it is. So that's what I do a lot. And I am actually signed up for a carbine class coming up this Saturday. So cool. Yeah, I'm pretty excited about it, and hopefully get some rounds down range and really work the rifle and try to really get that appreciation that I've been lacking. And it's like. It's just so hard to come down from the 308 because I just love all the 308 rifles I shoot, and I'm like, God, and then I take the AR out and I shoot it and I'm like, this feels like a toy, it's.
I get it. One thing that really, I shoot a lot of steel, and shooting steel always keeps it in perspective for me. Like you hear that 5.56 crack the steel and you're like, woo, I don't want that, I don't want that hitting me. and that's the only thing though, because the rest of it, I get my guns all tuned in and there's no recoil and usually suppressed or something. So they're quiet, no recoil, just little round. And you're like, man, I get where your head's at.
Sure. Well, I'm glad I have you to talk me off the ledge because honestly, on a regular basis, I've had this exact conversation with Ryan. I'm not going to lie to you guys. So, but I also understand practicality. So I've never faux pas the AR-15. I've never said, no, I'm not going to do that. I understand why I need one or why I need probably more than one, which, I may or may not have. But what I want to say is that, I love my 308. It'll be hard to ever just decide that I don't need it as much as something else. But I'm taking your advice, Ryan. We're doing it. Okay.
I'm telling you, when that CG, when the Bren 2 and 308 comes out, that's going to be one to look at. I think you'll like. It's they've got prototypes of it out. I think they may have released some somewhere, but they're out there a little bit and they're nice. They're almost Scar-ish, but the price point should be a little lower. Yep. And it'll be worth it, I think.
And a non-reciprocating charging handle, amazing.
Yep, they listen.
It's weird, you like when a manufacturer listens to what people are upset about. Yeah, so, exactly. I do want to get into the chat. I know there's some great questions coming in. I do want to say thank you to everyone. I do see that a couple other things came through. Exile Reviews, thank you for the super sticker. Appreciate it. Great community here, really supportive. And one thing that I think a lot of people, kind of lose track of is that it's easy to get into the budget oriented mindset, okay, and it's easy to want to save money, but when you cut corners on certain aspects of your preparedness, those corners can definitely show up at the wrong time and worst place, right? So I guess just to kind of wrap up this conversation about budget, we can kind of move on to something else. What dictates like acceptable quality for you? Like, is there a reliability threshold that you have when it comes to, a firearm that's specifically designated for like a survival situation, an SHTF event, self-defense to a degree of needing something that's, capable?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it sounds dumb, but I need it to run. And that's it. And whatever makes that happen is where I go. But the other piece that you got to consider is longevity, because you can get stuff that'll run for a little bit and then whatever, the materials aren't quite there or they're not they're not hardened in the right way or something, and they end up snapping, breaking later, and then you've got that problem. So that's where YouTube reviews come in wonderful. You can look back and be like, oh, this guy's got 5,000 rounds through it, and you see a whole bunch of people talking about it the same way. You can kind of get a feel for what holds up and what doesn't. You know, I usually spend my money on the parts that are going to, you know, have the most, I guess, effect on the firearm. Accuracy, barrel's one. You know, you need a bolt. You know, all the stuff that's really under pressure, that's really hardened, that stuff is where I spend a little bit of extra money. Sometimes, depending on what the firearm is, if we're talking an AR-15 here, usually the bolt, the barrel, make sure you've got the aluminum receiver. But aside from that, run it, and make sure it's going to keep running, you know. And then once you find something that works, and you will after a while just using something, you'll find stuff that works. Snag yourself an extra barrel, snag yourself an extra firing pin, and whatever. Just build yourself a little cache, because I basically have in one of my bags, I've got a plastic bag in there, and it has everything internal for an entire rifle. It's got buffer tube, an extra little mini stock, and spring, about all kinds of stuff, you know, and you could fit that all into a little bag. So that's, again, where working on your own gun comes into play, though, because then you know exactly what it is that would concern you, you know. There's parts you can pay a lot of money for that really don't do anything except look cool. And that's what a lot of people spend a lot of money on.
Yeah, cosmetics are always expensive and fun. So
absolutely.
But, you know, I totally agree with that. And I think Grayman Prepping actually had just mentioned a little bit ago about the necessity for additional parts for that specific reason, because there's a threshold of reliability that we're looking for, but we also want to be able to maintain through the long term if need be. And that's, of course, why like the AR-15 platform is so popular, because the parts are easily acquired. They're easy to work with. There's a lot of reasons behind that. And I can tell you guys, like, you know, compared to something like an M14 variant, right? To get like a parts kit for that is way more expensive, and it's a lot more complicated to actually work on those parts and actually to swap out parts and everything else. So those are all thoughts and considerations you have to make when making these decisions on, you know, long-term effectiveness. You know, am I able to actually work on this throughout a situation? Am I going to have a workbench with a vise? Am I going to have access to tools? You know, those are all things you have to consider.
Yeah. That's a lot of times why the AR ends up winning. You know, you can totally build one right out of your backpack in the middle of a field somewhere, no problem. And there's not a lot of guns you could say that about. You know, there's a few, but I mean, it's a modular bugger. It's just, you can't beat it. Every little inch of it it's pretty cool. It's like when we were little and we played Legos. That's what it's like, you know.
Yeah,
plug and play everything.
And I think another big factor that a lot of people might not realize, and then I want to get in after this, we'll get into the chat because there's some good questions coming through, but is a lot of people new to the game, you may not be aware of the fact that you can get different complete uppers for the AR-15 platform in different calibers, different barrel lengths, all kinds of different variations, so that you have the ability to have, you know, like two guns in one. Basically, you could have two different applications covered with one firearm. And when I say that, I even mean like in the sense of doing your background check and everything else. You only have to have the one lower receiver, and then you can start swapping uppers all day long if you want.
Yeah. And if you really know what you're doing, you don't even have to. As of now, you can make your own lower and go from there. You know, that's a whole other discussion, but it's nice because you could do everything from a 410 shotgun down to a 22 long rifle and everything in between, and something, you know, it's like you could have one upper set up with you know, a nice scope, some decent caliber that you could take a deer down with, and then have another 22 upper, something to run on it. So you've got something for plinking around, self-defense stuff around your property or your camp, or, you know, that kind of stuff. Anything where you're wanting to save a little on the ammo kind of thing. So
very modular.
Hard gun to beat. Yeah.
And, you know, rounds like 6mm arc or 6.5 Grendel and stuff like that have a great track record of hunting, being able to take medium-sized game. And then you have, you know, like you said, your 5.56 is your standard, and then you go down to, you know, even 22 long rifle conversion kits. So
Yeah.
it can do everything, and it's why I hate it in many ways, because I hate when the answer is so obvious and so practical, and it's almost boring.
Yeah, and it's
you know what I
always
mean?
the same answer. Yeah.
It's boring. It's like when I bought a Toyota. I was like, God, I'm so boring.
Yeah, exactly.
I bought
it
that
always
truck
works.
that
Just
just
lame.
everyone says will run for a long time. Great. You know what I mean? But it is what it is. So, all right. So let me jump in the chat here. And we have a couple questions coming through, Ryan, and I'm sure you can help me out with this. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's see. So like Vegan Prepper said, is an AR a smart home defense gun? And I think there's more than one approach to that question. But what are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts are always, I live different than a lot of people. I live kind of out in the middle of nowhere. Houses aren't very close together. I always think that's your thing to really consider. If you live in an apartment complex or something, you're going into the neighbor. It's going to go into the neighbors. You know what I mean? That's what you got to be thinking about. So it depends on that. I think it's a great do-all platform. I think what chamber you decide, what round you decide to chamber it in, it can be whatever. I mean, like I said, there's a 410. Charles Daly makes a 410 upper conversion for it. If you wanted to run, you could run your favorite AR in your house with a 410 upper and a little different loading. Try not to go through the neighbors. So I think it is an awesome option for home defense, but I think you got to consider 5.56 is serious. I mean, that's going to go through some walls and stuff,
100%. I think that's a good way of addressing it, because I think it has everything you would want, especially in the aspect of accessorizing, so you can have your your red dot and your flashlight and everything else that you might need in the night or whatever your situation is. And I mean, for me personally, my go-to home defense is actually my handgun, and that's just because it's right there, it's always nearby, it's got a light on it, it's ready to rock. I'm very capable with my handgun. In fact, in many ways better even than I am with rifles. I don't know how that worked out, but too much halo or whatever.
No, there's people that are like that. My dad's like that with his bow. He'll be at his house if there's something out in the yard. He grabs his bow. That's what he's good with.
Yeah, I mean, it's just how it works, But then I have the contingency of using that handgun to get to the heavier hitters if that's what the situation deems necessary. You know what I mean? So it is really based on your environment, your living situation, but definitely also on what you're comfortable with. And I'm so comfortable with my handgun and knowing that I can walk through my house and I could carry something else in one arm and still utilize it in the other arm. There's a lot of things I like about it,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm a big rifle proponent. I always have one close. I've always got one somewhere, whatever. But like you said, I never don't have a handgun. You know what I mean? Like that is, no matter where I go, that's like always tucked away. I mean, it's there, like, and there's something to say about that for sure. And when you're in like an apartment or something like that too, it also is a lot. You're going to get a lot less penetration than you would with a centerfire rifle cartridge, So it's a good option. It really is a good option in most cases for average home defense. Is going to be your handgun, some standard handgun.
Well, and my handgun of choice is a 460 Smith & Wesson, so
no, it's a serious handgun.
Just in case, yeah. I'm kidding. It's a 9mm. I'm not that impractical, everyone. All right. Yeah, but I do have that, so don't worry, okay? So I guess I got another question here, and then I was going to ask you a question directly from myself as well, because I'm always curious about things too. But I want to say, I'm looking for it here. It was from DIY Dad. I at least know that much. And he's saying a lot of people in his group run AKs, but he had a specific question. And gosh, I'm really trying to pull it up here.
Yeah, that's all right.
I found it. Okay. Nope, didn't find it. Dang. So the chat is going very well tonight, because if
everybody's talking
so deep, Okay, here's what he says. Hey guys, I already own a 5.56 9mm pistol and a 9mm pistol caliber carbine. What should I buy next? I've been thinking about a 308 battle rifle or maybe a 7.62x39. What are your thoughts? I mean, Ryan, I know you like AKs.
I do. I love AKs. It depends. I think one thing that we learned, or at least that I learned this last year that surprised me, was with all the ammo issues that came up. 7.62x51 and 308 was still available. Like I could still find that stuff really easy. And I was kind of blown away, because that always kind of turned me off in the past from 308 as a prepper rifle, just thinking like, man, am I going to be able to get 308, you know? And I started reloading it and stuff, but I was surprised to see that. So I think, you know, 7.62x51 is a great option for preparedness at this point. That's kind of changed in the last year. But when it comes to AKs and stuff, man, you can get some really cool AKs. I think if you're looking into an AK or something in that wheelhouse, consider what caliber you want, and then there's a way to get an AK kind of done up in that or something similar, and there's great options, you know, of all of them. I mean, you get 308 AKs and Galils and Serbian guns, 5.56 AKs, like that's my favorite. I mean, I love the AK, and I think right behind the AR, it's going to be like the next one that's got the most prevalence. I don't know. I just always think of it like this: you're in a situation where you don't have anybody to fix your guns and you're trying to find parts. What are you going to find the most of? And it's like Glocks, random ARs, probably a bunch of AKs, 12 gauge shotguns, pump shotguns, stuff like that. You're going to be able to find parts for if you find an apartment complex. I guarantee you there's an AR-15 bolt carrier group in every apartment complex somewhere, you know, like somebody has one in there. So I always kind of think of it that way, but AKs are great. I love them, and I run them a lot, but I always do keep the ARs just because of like what you said. I don't even want to. I wish I could not, but it really is the right gun for here. So there's a lot though. If you guys have watched any of my recent videos, I've got some stuff going on with a forced reset trigger and a belt fed upper, stuff like that. That's really cool, really crazy, over the counter legal stuff. And you'll see why the AR-15 is so, like when we're talking modular, this is like, holy cow, that's really what you did with it kind of stuff. So,
yeah, I mean, there's even a company that makes an upper attachment that turns it into a bolt action 50 cal, I'm pretty sure. So there's crazy stuff out there. So, you know, and DIY dad from me, I mean, I like 308 because 7.62x39, if you're going to, you know, have to choose between the two, doesn't really get you any further or better off than what a 5.56 will if you already have that. At least that's just my opinion, kind of based on the ballistics and stuff like that. There's a reason why the AKs actually switched out to 74s and switched to the 5.45x39 because ballistically they were still getting the job done without having to have the 7.62x39 cartridge, and you're saving weight and making follow-up shots and recoil a lot more manageable. But with the 308, you're still getting a lot more range, and the 308, you know, has a lot more energy downrange than 7.62x39. So, like, what I would say is, you know, spread the gap, and since you have a 5.56 already, get that 308 so that you can push it much further if that's what you need to do. Just my opinion.
I agree. You're covering more overall ground going that route. Like, I don't know, I think of that a lot too. Like, you can, I mean, I've deer hunted my whole life and stuff. You know, I know I could take something down with a 223. We've hunted with stuff like that in the past. And so it's like, for me, in my mind, anything kind of that size and down, I can handle with a 223 or a 5.56 gun. But you start getting into other situations, what are you going to want? I don't know, 12 gauge is always, you know, shotguns are always one too that you can consider, but they're, you can get them cheap. You can get nice. A lot of these new Turkish shotguns coming out are crazy nice. I don't know where this whole thing came from, but they're like $400, and there's a couple of crappy ones, but a lot of them are turning out to be some good guns. Those are always something to not overlook, you know?
Well, and yeah, my biggest thing with shotguns is just the weight factor. So heavy.
Yeah.
Ammunition, especially. So, but all right. I did see, let's see. Cogs Ed, I need coffee to stay awake for everyone, Cogs Ed, I promise you. And you know, I will do my shameless plug. This is the Invader coffee, and if you haven't tried their Mexican chocolate coffee blend, it's like ridiculously good. I'm not even gonna lie. Like, I will literally send some to you, Ryan, because it's amazing.
It's that good, huh?
It's like, it's ridiculous, but I like chocolate, I guess. So
Yeah.
I'm just throwing it out there, but trust me, guys, you know, links in the description if you're into it. Just throwing it out there. You brought up coffee, not me. Okay, so
That's funny.
I want to go ahead and ask you my question now. So hopefully this can help the community kind of see where things are heading. But as somebody who's in the industry and as somebody who's dealing with all of the issues surrounding everything that's going on lately, Do you have expectations of this ammo situation? Do you have like any foresight there as to like what you think we're going to be looking at down the road? Is now still the time to buy because there's not really any end in sight, or what do you think?
To be honest with you, I have orders that I put in like a year and a half, 2 years ago that I don't even have filled yet, and they're not canceled. They're just sitting on back order waiting to be filled. I'm getting more ammo, seeing more ammo move. I'm also seeing more firearms move, but I'm not really seeing prices move. And I think we've seen a major adjustment in ammo pricing that's not going to go away. I think that's one thing. Like, I don't think we're ever going to get a $9.99 box of 9mm again, kind of thing. So I don't know. I kind of feel like the answer is in the middle somewhere. Like, maybe not go all in buying tons of ammo right now, but hedge it. I think buying some now is good, because I don't know for sure how much is left and how hard the people who are trying to take guns away and everything are going to go, with that whole thing. They might attack ammo. They might try to. I mean, they're already doing like the Russian imports and stuff, which that won't affect us for some time, but still it's a big piece of, the cheap ammo coming in, all the steel case Russian stuff, and that should be dried up at some point. But that's typical. Those types of things happen constantly, and it's like life finds a way, right? Jurassic Park kind of stuff. But
don't go quoting Ian Malcolm on me now. I'll get too excited around here.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. The answer is I really don't know, and that's even from the inside. But I do see more moving around now, and I don't see. I hear a lot of people always getting upset because they see the prices and they're like, "What are these people doing? They're still charging these crazy prices." We don't have the option anymore. When I get stuff, it's not $6.99 for a box 9mm. It's $24.99. I mean, it's where it's at, and I don't know why. I think there's a lot of conspiracy theory that was probably somewhat accurate in there. I don't know. It's just weird that all the stuff that recently happened over in the Middle East, and for the last couple of years, we've been hearing all this stuff about government stepping in and snagging night vision orders, and all their ammo's gone, but everybody's running it. But where did all this stuff go? And it makes me wonder, did they pile it up over there and leave it? Was there some kind of back deal? Was there something? I don't know. Something just doesn't make sense about any of it, because I want to say about 2 years ago, there was a thing where like the military came in and took a whole bunch of night vision. And it was like everybody had these orders for night vision, and all of a sudden it was like, oh no, you're back ordered for 3 years and we don't know when. And it was like, what? But it was like the military came and just took everybody's stuff, and you're like, where did that go and why? And well, I don't know. There's just something strange going on, and I think it's hard to like answer that question when I don't think we're dealing with a fair game here. I think I don't know. It's to be seen.
That's actually really interesting, because we have definitely utilized the Defense Production Act recently due to the events of last year, and obviously a lot of that industry is easily affected by the Defense Production Act if they decide to access it that way. So I could see that being an issue, especially if it's going to continue. And I do think we're also I think that we basically have the shrinkflation aspect too, right? As like everything else, and maybe not in the same sense. Like, we're not getting 45 round boxes now, it's not like that necessarily. But what we are seeing is, like you said, the prices aren't going to just go back down to $10 when they're selling at 25, because why?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, they're selling,
and it's probably adjusted the whole market. Wherever they're getting all their lead from, wherever they're getting the powder from, wherever they're getting the brass from, all those guys said, hey, we can get 7 instead of 4. We can get whatever instead, and everybody just kind of jumped on, and everybody marks up a little. And at the end, we end up paying a lot more for the same thing.
Well, and a lot of people do forget that the industry as a whole is also affected by the labor shortages as well. It's not just everyone else, and everyone's paying a lot more money for labor now than they were before. And whether or not you think that's a good thing, all it really means is that everything else costs more,
Yeah, exactly.
So, all right, let's see. I'm trying to, and JS said that GFG got information that the manufacturers are 2 years behind on NATO rounds. And so, I mean, if that's the case, I mean, that's a pretty big backup, especially if anything happens in the next 2 years that are going to require large amounts of NATO ammunition. So, and I think, that's
I
a
don't know. It's
possibility.
kind of scary when you start thinking about it. Yeah, it's weird. Where's all this stuff going?
Well, and there's a lot of room for discussion there. That is for sure.
Yeah.
So I do want you guys all to understand, in case you are new to the chat, in case you weren't here in the beginning, Ryan Jeske's here with Prescott Caliber Club. Make sure you check out his YouTube channel. A lot of firearms related content over there. But he's also a prepper. I mean, maybe he doesn't call himself that, but I can call him that. And he's a preparedness guy, though. And he runs a preparedness store, and he has all the stuff that you would want in the sense of being able to, survive and thrive in an SHTF event. And I mean, he's a cool dude that has a lot of good information when it comes to all of that stuff. If you're worried about freeze drying food, he can give you info. If you're worried about, body armor, he can give you info. If you're worried about dealing with like NFA stuff and tax stamps and stuff, he can give you info. So make sure you check out his channel and connect, because he's been a huge resource for me in my preparedness journey and helping kind of push me in the right direction when it comes to, gearing up and getting ready for what's happening out there. So please make sure, you check him out if this is an area that you feel you could be better prepared in, because I'm honestly, yes, he's a friend of mine, but at the same time, like as we've done business with each other in the past, very easy to communicate with, very smooth transactions, and all my questions have been answered. So I just want to make sure you guys understand that's one of the reasons why I also brought Ryan here. Expertise in the field, good information for everybody who's new to the realm of self-defense and firearms and stuff like that, but also because he's been a good person to know in the sense of business. So let's see.
There's also a real cool story behind the preparedness story that some people don't know. As I started getting into preparedness, I've always kind of been just outdoors. We've always hunted. I grew up in northern Wisconsin, and it was camping, hunting, outdoors my whole life, everything. And as I got older, I started actually getting into like prepping and being prepared and whatever. I started getting all this stuff, but at some point there's like a fine line between hoarding and what we're doing here sometimes, So you start to get all this stuff, and I'm like, man, how can I take it to the next level? And I was in between careers. I was in another industry before, and I had sold out of a business, and I was like, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get into a preparedness store, because what could be a better prep than having a store full of preparedness gear, honestly. And so part of it is like, even some of my stuff that's for me personally is rotated through the store. You know what I'm saying? Like my food supplies, I keep X amount of food supply on hand through the store, and it's rotating. So what's left is always my, that's where I end up with what I have, kind of thing. But it was a real cool way to get into big preps. I mean, a lot of stuff. It's just cool. You need a compass. It's like, all right, let's go out in the garage real quick.
Yeah, no, I used to be a partner in a everyday carry store as well, and it's very similar vibe there. It's like, oh man, I need to get a new pocket knife, and it's like, well, I guess I'll just turn around,
Yeah, exactly. Check this and this.
Yeah, and I'll buy it, but then just put in the money back in my own business. So, but what I will say is that that's actually funny you said that. I had a video recently about like prepping that was worth getting into debt for, and one of the things I said was starting a business, because and I was like those preparedness store guys, like, we know what you're up to, but I didn't expect you to come on here and tell us.
Yeah, I want everybody else to do it too. I mean, the reality is I mean, it's hard though. It's not. I mean, you're risking it, and it's a lot of hard work. I mean, selling small preparedness items doesn't, it's hard to pay bills, but at the same time, the position that I had gotten myself in, I've always been of the mindset, like, I need to always think of what's the worst case scenario that could happen here, and I need to be prepared for that, no matter what part of my life that is, and so that's how I've always done it. So when I got to this point, it was like, holy cow, I really, over needing to have some really extremely high paying job, I was able to step into doing this, which I enjoy, and then it keeps me prepared as well, so it was a lot of preparedness to get me to the preparedness, I guess, is the point of that.
I like that. I actually might need to coin that quote. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it takes a lot of preparedness to get to the preparedness.
Exactly. I mean, it does. I mean, just the amount of things. Well, like you said earlier, how many nights is laid in bed and like, or I get a text from you or something like 2 a.m. You're like, what's the best steal for the? I'm like, I don't know. I mean, it's like 2 a.m. like, I get it though. Like, that's where we're at, I mean, takes a lot to really be prepared. And then the crazy thing that I always think about too is you could have the wrong mindset. You could be ready to bug in and need to bug out, and you go and you got nothing anyway, and you were just where you were at. And
Hey, that variable always
world.
exists. You might run out the front door and not have anything, and be like, "Well, I guess starting from scratch here."
Yeah, I should have slept those nights instead of worrying.
Yeah, or just embrace the Marauder aspect of life, I guess. So.
Exactly. Yeah. Absolutely.
So I got a couple things here in the chat. One thing I wanted to talk about real quick. Let's see here. Somebody just said something. I was like, "Hey, man. Hey, what's up, Clover Tack? I just saw he just jumped into the chat. Good to see you. Yeah, doing a live with Ryan here. Can't go wrong. Let's see." And Clover Tack is another great firearms channel. If you guys are interested in firearm stuff, that's a good place to go. Trust me on that. Gosh, I'm trying to find the comment, which is like, I guess a typical thing we do here, because the comments definitely disappear quickly.
Just go fast.
Yeah, right.
You need to come up with like an app. Yeah, you need to come up with some kind of app that searches the comments quick.
Yeah, I mean, I think they have those, and I'm just a layman, I guess, I did see somebody come in, and I'll look for this while you talk about this real quick, but somebody mentioned that you've spent some time with Jim Fuller in the past. So, so explain, like Jim Fuller, if you don't know who he is, obviously he's a great in the realm of the AK-47 and the AK platform in general. Why don't you, kind of tell everybody about, your time with Jim, and then like kind of explain maybe some of what he does in case anybody's interested,
Yeah, well, we should plug Jim a little bit too, because he's got a new spot down in Phoenix now called Fuller Phoenix. But Jim Fuller, basically back 80s sometime, somewhere around there, he started to get into AKs on the side, built, putting them together, figuring out what is this $80 Chinese piece of junk kind of thing. Like, I'm going to make this run, and he turned it into he's really well known. They just did a documentary in Russia on Mikhail Kalashnikov, the guy who invented the AK, and they brought Jim to Russia to be in the documentary about it. I mean, it's like,
that's crazy.
He's not just a dude who's in the garage working on AKs. So check him out, Fuller Phoenix. He's a really cool guy. I got to know him through some business transactions I was actually doing. I'm still kind of in the middle of this transaction, but I'm having this crazy World War II machine gun rebuilt, and it's a thing that I can't work on. So I have a company that he was associated with doing the work, and that's how I bumped into him, because he was working on one, and we got talking or whatever, and it just so happened that he was moving to Arizona, and we hung out, chatted, got going, and I still am planning on hoping to do some build stuff with him at some point. I've got the invitation to go down and do some build classes with Jim, so that'd be pretty cool to learn how to really build AKs from somebody who's world renowned. Really,
that's awesome. And like similar as to why I brought you here on the show. It's like, it's always important to reach out to people with more knowledge than you, or more expertise, and learn from those people as best you can, and there's always somebody, there's always somebody who knows a little bit more. And like, if you don't think so, then you're lying to yourself,
Exactly.
So I did see the comment I was looking at, because like, I just wanted to mention it. So Redpaw 527 said, you focus on firearms a little too much. And I mean, that's an understandable thing to say, especially in the sense of preparedness, because a lot of people are like, you're not going to need your firearm as much as you're going to need that water, or as much as you're going to need that food. I totally get that concept.
Absolutely.
But the other side of it is that, firearms, at least if you're into the hobby, and if you're into the idea of, self-defense and everything else related to it, it's exciting, and it's fun, and it's something I'm passionate about. So it's not that I focus too heavily on them in the sense of like, all I have is firearms, and if anything happens, oh well, I'll just use those to get what I need. It's not like that. It's more of this is something I'm passionate about. I have a decent knowledge set around, and I also have some previous experience with. So I find myself just being able to put out decent information about it, as well as enjoying the information and the topics surrounding it. So I could see why someone might feel that way, but I'm not lying to myself when I think I'm gonna need this AR more than I'm gonna need that food supply. Like, that's a lie. I conceal carry every single day, and I haven't ever used it. You know what I mean? I get that, and that's just how it usually works, and how I hope it works forever. To be honest with you, so
yeah. Well, and the one thing in the prepper, especially in the online prepper community, anytime you talk about guns, you're going to get that guy who's like, "Oh, you don't need to just talk about guns." I mean, you can't even have like one gun. I can't be like, "Oh, that's a nice 22," and they're like, "Prepping's about more than 22." I'm like, I know that, but that's what my score is. I mean, I don't know if you're just talking about it, but I do agree with that wholeheartedly. Like, I love firearms. It has nothing. Really, my love for firearms has nothing to do with preparedness. When I was a little kid, I grew up around hunting. I grew up around my grandparents, my great grandparents. Even I have their firearms to this day. It was more than guns to me, But it does fit into preparedness. If you go and look at a lot of what I do, though, like I said when I first started talking to you tonight, was Prescott Caliber Club isn't totally just guns. I mean, it's probably 40% guns and 60% other stuff. We're into solar gear. We're into all kinds of other things, because I think those things are extremely important. Now, it's good to have the expertise I have, because I can really take care of my, my gun stuff. But food, water, where are you going to stay? What are you going to do? How are you going to grow food? That type of stuff, I think is so underlooked. And there are a lot of people who are like, yeah, let's go do this apocalypse thing. And they want a dystopian whatever, and it's just not how I don't think it's going to be. You're going to spend a lot more time gardening than you're going to spend shooting. That's for sure.
Yeah, 100%, and that's fine. But if you can't defend what you have, there will be a time where you might not have it anymore. So I guess that's always something to keep in mind. And I do want to mention during this awesome conversation, and Red Paw 527, I just want to mention, I'm not trying to be mean to you or anything like that. I just
not at all.
Take that comment and put some context to it, because I think that there is some truth to that statement, but I did get the Red Dawn up here now. So I follow through. You guys voted, and I was like, cool. Weird 80s acrylic painting that makes Patrick Swayze look like something else, but it's there, okay? But good to go, okay? So let's see here. Trying to get into the chat a little bit. Now, we are getting towards the hour mark, so I do want to go ahead and hit on another bullet point I had. And it's the last one, and I want you all to know that I put some bullet points together, because these are things I want someone who has more expertise than I do to address, to kind of give you guys some insight as to some of this information. Okay, so one thing I want to talk about is training and how important training is, and also to kind of go over some common misconceptions or myths within the firearms community. Here's where we're going to bring this context in from. I'm going to go ahead and do a quick little doodad here, Ryan. So bear with me as I am definitely an old geezer when it comes to this, apparently, because I know tech. I don't know why I just suck at this. So okay, so this video is crazy in the sense of it's almost at 900,000 views now, right? And I was never expecting that, but this was a video I just put out as a short, because I was like, oh, let's try out this whole shorts thing, and it's now like my highest viewed video on the entire channel, which is like kind of sad in some ways. I'm just gonna say that, okay?
I think it's got more views than my whole channel.
Well, and that's sad too, okay? There's a lot of sadness going around. But basically, awesome. All that happened was I had a really big setback in one of my rounds. And I was like, dang, man, like, this is crazy. But in the middle of a move, I unloaded and reloaded the same round a bunch of times, just because of having kids around and not having anywhere safe to put the firearm at night and stuff like that. So there was just some reasons behind why I did that, but it's not a typical scenario for me, right? Now, the reason I brought this up was because thanks to that large of a viewership, and thanks to that whole experience with having that video be seen that much, basically I found that a lot of people don't know a lot of very basic things, and it's very eye-opening in the sense of why training is very important, and why you really should and it's not about not knowing things or not doing this or that. It's about at least ask questions. Like, if you don't know something, ask questions, but don't just make statements when you haven't taken any formal training, or you don't have any information as to why things are a certain way. So one of the biggest comments I had on that video was, hey, no wonder that happened. Your barrel's crooked, right? So the barrel's not crooked. So just so everyone's aware, in a lot of modern striker-fired semi-automatic handguns these days, there's a locking, I guess, design made by Browning that would be called the tilting breech lock, right? Am I on?
Yeah.
I'm on course with that, right? So basically, it's just a way for the slide to lock with the barrel for things to return to battery. So yes, the barrels tend to tilt upward when the slide is locked back, because it's how the entire system, locks back up when it's dropped. So that's just something I wanted to put out there. That was one of the biggest comments I got in that video. Your barrel's crooked. Your barrel's crooked. Over and over and over again. And you remember that video a long time ago?
You had the scope was backwards,
right? The scope was backwards, yeah. So that's another one I've got on low power variable optics, where the front of the tube is skinnier than the back of the tube. And I'm saying that in that
it looks
terminology,
cool,
so everybody knows what I'm trying to say. But yeah, we don't want to talk about objective and everything else. It'll freak everyone out. But what I'm trying to say is, it's fine to not know those things, but ask questions or do some research, and don't just assume things or make statements before you have a little bit of knowledge under your belt.
Yeah. Well, I also want to say there's a big piece. Like, I started a gun store specifically because I've always struggled and disliked how I was treated when I walked into gun stores. I don't know. I have this little thing with the gun community where everybody seems to really have this like machismo and want to be better and know more, and your gun's stupid, and why do you carry that? And there's so much of that in the gun industry and the gun world, and it makes me crazy, because it's what keeps us divided. It's what keeps new people from wanting to come in. It's what keeps people from being on the same team. It's like 2A can't assemble because we're too busy talking down to other people in 2A about their stupid gun and this dumb, stuff like that. And I have always hated that. The thing you need to be more than anything when it comes to guns is comfortable. You need to feel comfortable and safe with what's going on. And if that means starting out with a 22 pistol and going to the range with one person, one-on-one training, whatever it is that makes you comfortable and makes you feel comfortable, that's the most important thing. If you don't, then it's going to be dangerous. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to do things wrong. You're going to be nervous. You're going to be anxious. You're going to pull the trigger early. Something bad is going to happen if you don't feel secure, maybe would be the better word. I don't know. Just that needs to be part of all of this. And that's where I think training comes in. And like you said, asking questions. People are always afraid to ask questions. I see it all the time. They'll come into the store and they'll be talking to me, and they'll like have a question about something, and I can tell they're about to ask it, but they're afraid to ask it because they don't want me to be like, oh, that's stupid. That's the safety. I can tell because that's how they've been treated forever, every time they go into a gun store. So I try to just not do any of that. And on my channel, if people are like that, you're gone. I just don't mess with it. I don't have time for that. And that's not what Prescott Caliber Club's about. I want people to feel really welcome and be able to ask me anything. There's tons of things that I don't know. I always tell people I'm more of like a concierge kind of service than I am like a gun dealer. I mean, people call me and we develop relationships and start to be like, I'm going to be looking for this. In a couple of years, I'm going on a hunting trip. What kind of rounds are we getting? What calibers, what guns, what are we talking? It develops into more of a relationship. And that's a lot of what I think is important in this, is getting, even if it's a local community, something together where you go out and you shoot and you feel comfortable, and you can ask questions if you have questions. And if you make a mistake, it's fine. Fix it, figure it out. And, I don't know, just that's the biggest piece to this, is you need to find a group that you feel comfortable with and safe with and secure with, because otherwise you're not going to get the most out of it for sure. And you probably won't get anything out of it, very little.
No, I 100% agree with that. I think maintaining some humility and not assuming that you know everything. When I visit different, gun stores and stuff, I often ask questions that I pretty much know the answer to already. I know what it is that I'm already looking for, what it is, that I'm in the market for, and why. But I always want to hear someone else's input or opinion or perspective on, like maybe I'm wrong, or maybe there's something else I haven't thought of, so I'm always trying to find out, maybe this guy or this lady might have a better opinion than I do, and maybe they have a little more insight than I do. Unfortunately, a lot of times at a lot of especially the big box stores, you're working with salespeople a lot of times who maybe aren't even that knowledgeable, but they will completely act like they are, and they will tell you what you do or don't need, and they will tell you information at times that is hard to listen to, or even I've heard conversations with like a sales rep or sales person and a customer who's new, and the interaction made me cringe because I'm just like, oh my God, like, can you just let me hang out with this person for 15 minutes? And, you know what I mean? Like to help them.
Yeah, exactly.
Because the information is like bad, or it's just like you said, it's very demeaning in ways. And it's uncomfortable,
that's the worst part is it's just, if you're uncomfortable, you're not going to be as receptive, and you definitely aren't learning as much. One of my big things is I'm always like, let's go to the range, grab your stuff, let's meet Saturday and go out. And that's where most of that kind of stuff takes place, where you get comfortable out on the range doing your thing.
Well, and it's like some of my favorite examples are like hey, I'm gonna go deer hunting, and I was looking for a rifle. Like, what should I get? And then the answer is, well, a 22 will take out anything with the right shot placement. Okay, all right. Well, this person's clearly new to everything, and you just blew their mind in the worst way possible.
Yeah, exactly.
So when they show up to their hunting trip with a 22 long rifle, I hope the guide or whoever's with them is understanding as to why,
yeah, exactly. Well, that's the worst part too, is in all this you start, it seems funny, but that type of stuff is constant in this industry, and it drives me bananas. I'm just like, we could do so much. Why spend the time arguing and doing all that? We need to, especially if we're under attack like we have been. The Second Amendment is not getting better by any means. We're not gaining more rights over time here, so we need to be unifying, and I just don't see it happening, and it's scary.
Yeah. Well, and I will say, especially for all the newcomers and for the new preppers and for the new firearms owners out there, also be careful who you put all your faith into. And I'm not trying to like say you should doubt the people around you. What I'm saying is always do some of your own personal research and get second opinions on things, because what I've seen a lot too in the past, that I'm sure you've seen, and it really bothers me, but it's that the buddy, or the friend who is just like the tactical expert of the friend circle, and they have all the answers, and their answers are the ones that you and I probably have a hard time sleeping at night because of. And like that's, and you see it a lot, and people take that word and say, okay, well, this is what my buddy said, and he knows all about it because he's got like 17 guns. So I'm going to go ahead and take his word on it. But another example from that video where about the carry ammo danger that I know is going to bother you, but there's a lot of debate around, if you should have a round chambered or not, right? And at least for me, there's no debate. But everyone's got personal preference. I don't try to force my opinion on every single person, right? Do I prefer carrying a round in the chamber? Of course. I feel like it's the more efficient way to do things. And if you have quality components and a quality firearm, there's really no reason to be concerned about the safety issue of it, because that's what it's designed for. But in that argument, it is a different approach to literally come out and say, the only reason you chamber around is because you don't have enough training and you haven't done enough work with your firearm to know how to pull it out and rack the slide and be proficient enough to walk around safely without having that round in the chamber. And unfortunately, I know that guy who left that exact comment has a bunch of friends around him. Yeah, he's got a bunch of buddies who he told that exact thing to, and has convinced a lot of people that they should walk around without a round in the chamber because they're better trained than everyone else, so they're going to pull that firearm out and rack the slide and be good to go. And everyone else is the one who is an idiot. And it's that kind of stuff is why I want to say, make sure you verify your sources. Make sure you get a second opinion. I'm not telling you everything I say is dead on correct, because that is wrong. I don't care what anyone says. Are there people in the industry I would listen to? Yeah. There's people I would trust a lot more than others. Trust me on that. But I'm still going to actually take a look at any information I'm given and wonder if there's any other alternatives there, because when you see that much like machismo kind of like overtake the
Oh yeah.
actual safety factor as to like what is and is not proper technique, or is not a better equation. That's concerning to me, because those people have a lot of influence on their inner circle generally.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because that's the guy yelling. Squeaky wheel makes the most noise. That's the one.
That
That's
that
really the
guy's
guy out there
super squeaky
pushing.
wheel.
Yeah, exactly. He's the one pushing it. Anytime you see somebody chambering, when he's like, "Hey, let me tell you about this."
Well, I can tell you what. Do I make mistakes? Of course I do. Is there a reason that I should have a round ever get that much setback from being loaded and unloaded that many times? No, I mean that was user error. I should not have done that. Okay, but I shared that mistake with everyone to try to just say, hey, by the way, this can happen, and you should keep an eye out. And it turned into like, you're an idiot for racking rounds. What's wrong with you?
That's the worst, dude. That's the worst part about it all is when you're trying. I've done that 50 times on my channel where I tried to show something like I was stupid, I did this wrong, and oh my God, it's like you are not allowed to make a mistake. If you do, how could you have a gun chance? It's like, yeah, I'm sure you've never slipped your magazine in backwards ever, or you know what I mean? Like, come on. I mean, my goodness. And that's where, like you said, people learn.
If you have ever shot, if you've ever shot yourself in the eye with a buffer retaining pin and you weren't wearing your safety goggles, then hit the subscribe button because
yeah, exactly.
Because seriously, I mean, like every time something like that's happened to me, I'm like, oh my God, the glasses,
Yeah,
like
exactly.
That's what they're for. I keep forgetting,
That's what people don't realize too. You're on video doing something. I always tell people, where's your video? Let me see yours, because I bet you there's a bunch of dumb bonehead stuff that you did in your video too. It's easy to pick them apart.
Editing is really nice, by the way.
Yeah, it can be.
Yeah. And just throwing it out there, just so everybody's aware, tomorrow I have another video coming out that's part of the 30 Days of Preparedness collaboration with a bunch of other YouTube prepping channels. So make sure you guys tune in, because it's going to be very embarrassing for me, because it's about physical fitness. And, you'll actually see me in motion, which is not a good way to see me. But hey, I did it for you. Okay, I swallowed the pride, sacrificed my integrity, and I said, watch this horrible montage of somebody trying to act like they have a certain level of fitness. So, but if you like that kind of thing, make sure you check in, because it's more about like the necessity of it. It's more about the motivation than it is about, I'm not trying to teach people how to work out. I'm just trying to talk about how important it is. So don't listen to what I tell you when it comes to working out. Just like with firearms, like, yeah, I have a decent amount of knowledge, but double check me, So there's a couple things coming in through the chat. Kanzi, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate this topic of lifting up the learning spirits of preppers whom wish to learn. Well done at Ryan and at Magic Prepper. And that's what I'm trying to say is, like, no one should be ashamed to ask questions or try to learn more about, something that they're interested in. But in this industry, there's a lot of people who make those uncomfortable situations. It's unfortunate. I did see some super chats come in. Thank you so much. Exile Reviews, much appreciated. It looks like, Mark Fallos, thank you for that. John Wow, for you, Texas native. Thank you, much appreciated. And if I missed any, I apologize, but I try to hit all of them. Let's see, Little Man Big Opinion said, I'd love to play Magic sometime, Magic Prepper. One of these days, you never know. Okay, so and then Brenda said, he's correct. True prepping is far more than firearms. What's your plan if volcanoes in Yellowstone blow? The New Madrid fault shakes. Does drought last 3 years as it tends to every 60 years? So yeah, exactly. That's what we were trying to talk about earlier, was like, of course, not everything is revolving around firearms, but it is an excellent topic that, provides a lot of discussion. And there is a lot of, I guess the best way to say it, information to digest that can be complicated and can make making decisions difficult.
Yeah, and I think no matter what anybody says, it is a part of emergency preparedness. So if you don't know about it, just saying, well, it's not all about that isn't really a great excuse. You still got to learn about that piece to it, security and whatever, if you're going to be hunting, those types of things, So it is part of it, so it doesn't hurt to learn. And there's just a lot of people who like them.
Well, yes, and that is a big part of it. And and this is a good point right here. So a Gate Beowulf said, there's a dude preparing for EMP attacks with an electronic scope in his rifle. And so, what we can say about that is, I mean, first and foremost, there is no guarantee that an EMP would necessarily disable all small electronics. And obviously, when we're talking about things like red dot sights and stuff like that, I mean, those are relatively small, less complicated electronics. But obviously, that's also why I prefer having backup iron sights on just about every, firearm I have in the sense of preparedness. I like having that option as a secondary option in case there is any kind of a failure. And I also think that there's a lot of other options out there, like prismatic scopes that have an etched reticle, so that even if the power doesn't work, you still have the reticle available to you. A lot of illuminated scopes still have their crosshairs, regardless of whether or not they're illuminated or not. So at the end of the day, unless something specifically electronic, like a holographic or a red dot sight, there's still usually a secondary non-electronic option there. But even the red dot sights and the holographics, we don't know if an EMP is going to knock them out or not. We really don't. I mean, there's so many variables in that discussion and so many unknowns, in all honesty. And you have a lot of preparedness stuff related to EMP, right, Ryan?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm really into a lot of electronics, solar building, solar systems for myself, stuff like that. And I've been messing with the EMP shields. I definitely am into like the Faraday cages, Faraday bags. I have some Faraday bags that I've been getting into lately. I don't know. I think it's an important thing to think about, but at the same time, like you said, how do you know? Some of those small electronics, I don't know what it's going to do. I don't know how it's going to affect them. And it's also kind of hard to have when you do stick your rifle in a Faraday bag every night kind of thing. It's almost like you need to have a backup set of red dots and radios and all those types of things. So that's kind of how I play it. Is I get an EMP bag, whatever, cage built, however I'm setting that up, and then I put a set of usually cheaper electronics and things than what I have, trying to save some money, because it's like I can't spend thousands of dollars on optics over here and then thousands of dollars over here and stick them in a bag, but I always try to keep an extra set. But I definitely think EMP is something to consider. I really have a hard time believing any kind of, war here would be the traditional type. I don't know. It just, to me, seems like there's going to be a lot more tech war type stuff, whether that's power outages and that type of stuff. I don't know. It's something that I'm definitely concerned about. I definitely think EMP shields are something to consider. Some people hate those things, and man, does that bring up always, you get haters and stuff when you get on that topic too. But it is what it is. It's cool. It's a cool thing to discuss, no matter how you feel about it. So definitely EMPs are a consideration.
Well, I kind of like that that concept that you brought up. The idea of having additional like electronics in a Faraday bag or something like that, isn't the worst idea. And maybe that's a good use for maybe like a budget optic that you've grown out of, but isn't worth necessarily. Exactly. Yeah, like maybe you don't need to recuperate the money on it, but you have it as an option.
Or it's like, do you really want $30 back when in that situation having that thing would be worth $1 million kind of thing? You paid $30 for $1 million worth of protection. I don't know. It's just how I always look at it, but that's my preparedness mind too.
Well, and that's, I think, a big thing with the EMP thing, especially when we're talking about like firearms components, electronics, and stuff like that. Once you start really getting into stuff like the EMP shield and everything else, I mean, then you start hitting a certain price point. And I understand the skepticism there, because people feel like, well, there's no real way to test this. I don't know if it works or not. And if something happens, like, will it even matter if it works or not? Like, who am I going to hold accountable, right? But with something like a Faraday bag, you might have some of the same situation there in the sense of, hard to test or whatever, but the cost is very low and the investment is there so that you're doing something to try to prepare for that possibility. And that's a good idea. Some like a red dot sight or something, and then maybe even like a rangefinder, maybe even throw in, like you said, some walkie-talkies or some two-way radios.
A set of bow fangs or something. Yeah, I always keep some of those in there. I usually keep like a small solar generator, some kind of power bank or something too. Just one set of like I said, usually sometimes it's even just gifts from people, you know, the random gifts you get at Christmas from the mother-in-law and stuff like that. It's some cool flashlights and stuff. And I usually keep a whole thing set up like that.
Good idea. Good idea. I like that. So hopefully that answered the question, Agate Beowulf, because I saw that and I thought that was very interesting. So let's see. I'm going to get back here in the chat just a little bit more. And let's see. Okay, so here's a good one for you, Ryan. And this is something that, maybe you have a decent opinion on. I'm not sure. But MIL or MOA for your turrets and for your scopes? I mean, what do you prefer for measurements, I guess?
I usually go MOA. I mean, I don't do. I'm also not I'm into hunting, but I'm not like some crazy long range precision guy. So you're not going to often find me out there talking about like, oh, we're not quite getting sub-minute and stuff like that. I'm not. Just not my thing. I've hunted my whole life, and it was never needed. I never found the need for that much precision, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But I've shot, shoot out to 1,000 yards and stuff like that. And when I use MOA stuff. It's just where I found the most compatibility, where I found the most people, at least around here, in common, just all of it like that. It's just one of those things, again, commonality.
I think MOA is kind of easier to math in your head.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
I think so. Well, it depends on what your head, sometimes my head's different than others, but I would agree in my mind, it makes way more sense.
Well, and a MIL is at least off the top of my head about like 0.3 inches, I believe. So you're talking, 3 mil to 1 MOA basically. At least that's my understanding of it. And that's
it's somewhere around there. Yeah.
So that's a little bit more number crunching, but it's also more precise. So like you said, if you're not worried about precision at longer ranges, MOA usually covers your bases pretty well. And especially in the cost factor area, if you are, I'm doing it wrong there. Draw D said I had it backwards. 3.5 MOA in a MIL. I knew I was doing something wrong here.
Backwards,
yeah. And that's the thing. Once you get sighted into one or the other,
whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to kind of know your increments. So let's see here. But I mean, that makes sense to me. And I have noticed that a lot of like more budget friendly options are going to be MOA generally. So let's see. Okay, an Army Sapper said, pretty sure the high-end red dots such as Aimpoint M4s are shielded from what I was told overseas. So, I mean, maybe that's true. I don't know.
They very well could be. I run that optic a lot. It's one of my favorites. I wouldn't doubt it, I guess, to put it that way. Like your ACOGs and stuff, ACOGs run tritium, but like a lot of that military stuff, it wouldn't surprise me one bit if it was.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, and a manufacturer like that is pretty on top of it. So free Wi-Fi, which I don't know if I want that or not, but says, what's the plan for Elon Musk's AI Terminators when they show up at your doorstep? And for me, I mean, like at this point, like the best I got is a 12 gauge and a 460. You got to have some heavy hitters, man, for the robots. I don't.
I think if a robot shows up, we're screwed.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I like to think big, especially we're talking T1000. That's a big problem then. All right.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, New York Prepper is here. That's awesome. Good to see you, man. That guy loves shooting a 500 Smith & Wesson, so at least I know I can trust him on recoil.
Yeah, he's got a strong hand.
Right. Okay, so and then we're gonna start wrapping this up. And one thing I want to address, so kind of on our way out the door here, Ryan, and this is one thing I want to talk about real quick, is that White Space Marines, which is Warhammer reference, I assume, from 40K. And whoever sent that earlier, I don't play Legacy. If you know, you know. Anyway, so what are your thoughts on a PSA AR-10 and 308? And from my understanding, like some of the PSA stuff coming out right now is definitely meeting that threshold of like entry level reliability to the point where you could feel good about it. Am I off base there? Or is that pretty much where we're at?
I don't think so. I don't have any issue with PSA. I know of some of they're one of the people who I check make sure it's staked. I mean, just little things like that I make sure with them. But I mean, their components, it's just funny sometimes if you really see where this stuff comes from, half of it comes from the same place, and you get guys talking about how shitty that receiver is or whatever, and I'm like, all right, came out of the same factory as yours, just got a different stamp in it.
Yep.
I really don't have much issue with PSA, and I've run a lot of them, and I'll like grab PSA bolts and run them in machine guns and stuff, just because that's what's laying around when we're putting stuff together, and it's like I rarely run into any kind of issue. Now, I can't say never, because I have had a few where I had some tolerance issue, just a little weird little issues, but I mean, it's pretty few and far between, and I do a lot of screwing around and shooting and swapping parts, and you'd think I'd run into it a lot more, if they were if it was a consistent issue with them. So
yeah,
I think you're on point.
I mean, I have a PSA build as well, and I haven't had any issues.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think they've kind of, well, a few years ago, it might've been more of a risky business situation, right?
Yeah, possibly. It really depends. It's kind of up and down. Like, it's hit or miss. It really is with them. And I don't know. I know that like sometimes, it depends on, are they importing firearms or are they manufacturing firearms? And so like a lot of times when you're buying AKs from places where they do those, you see those budget priced AKs, that's what you got to look for. Did it get assembled in Romania, or was it assembled here? And that's usually the ones that were assembled here aren't. So it's definitely something to look at. But as far as the AR market goes, I think they have some really great products, honestly, for the price. It's crazy that you can go to their website and come out of there for $400 or $500 sometimes and be like, wow, I pretty much have a whole rifle, and get it home and put 5,000 rounds to it and never have an issue, I don't know how you could complain about it.
Well, and I would say that these days, a big determining factor is going to be the customer service aspect. If you're going to get good customer service, then the risk is a little bit, less because of it. That if they stand behind the product and they're willing to actually take care of anything that's wrong, that's going to be a huge difference at this point, So let's see. Guys, I really enjoy these kind of conversations, as you are aware. And, I do hope you guys go check out Ryan's channel over there. Like I told you, the mods earlier, like we can't share his website here just because of certain restrictions here on this platform. But you can go check out his YouTube channel. And from there, I'm sure you can, interact and communicate and, figure out whatever it is you need to do at that point. But
all my links and stuff there.
Yeah. And honestly, like I said, I've known Ryan for more than 2 years now, which is crazy,
It is wild. Yeah.
Yeah. We've had a little crew, from back in the day that's kind of stuck around. I am hoping to have Survival Living on here as well at some point here soon.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm hoping. I want to have him come on. He actually recently did the Pathfinder training course, which is like a wilderness
survival course. He's been busy. He's doing some cool stuff.
Yeah. So I'm actually hoping he can come on here and talk about that and let everybody know, like, that there's options to get out there and learn bushcraft and learn all that stuff. So
learn. I know.
Yeah. I would love to,
cool
have that conversation. So, make sure you guys, if you have anything for me, you have questions, obviously magicprepper.com. And I can always help get you in touch with Ryan too, if that's something you're interested in, or if you have any questions about, what he does and stuff, feel free to contact me directly. But this is like what I'm trying to do. I want to have good conversations. I want to build this community. And I also want to get other people's opinions and perspectives on things that, I'm not an expert on. I'm not, infallible when it comes to information, and I don't know everything. And when it comes to something I'm passionate about, like, firearms and the like, I would love to have a more educated opinion. And that is, in my opinion, at least Ryan. So,
yeah.
And
I
Ryan,
appreciate you having me too. I mean, it was a good time, and I'm always down to do this kind of stuff or answer questions. I don't know. That's one thing I get a lot is I respond to pretty much everything anybody sends me. I get pretty busy. I'm just a one-man operation over here. But if you got questions about anything, you can email me. It might take me a week to get back, but I usually will get back. So even if it's weird questions about, legalities with firearms and things like that, I've got legal people and stuff that I do work with. So I have a lot of resources. So if there's ever questions, hit the website up and just hit me up, whatever, send me something and I'll figure it out.
Yeah. And, if there's anything else related to, like, making firearms decisions, maybe getting, you know, education or whatever it might be. Is there anything else you want to leave everybody with before we wrap this up, Ryan?
I don't think so. I mean, well, first of all, I don't know where you put it or if we put it anywhere, but there is a discount for all of your subscribers. I'll leave that up to you to put that out maybe somewhere or something. But over on my
if you guys want access to that, I mean, sign up for the MAGIC on my website, or send me a direct message on my website, because unfortunately on this platform, there's certain things we are not allowed to do, and that's one of them. But outside of this realm, there's things we can talk about, obviously.
Yeah, so there's that for you guys. There'll be a little discount that I usually offer out to people that I do this kind of stuff with, where we just, you know, spend time together. So there'll be that for you guys. And, you know, I don't really have a whole lot other than I'm always here for whatever it is you guys, you know, need to know, want to know. I'm happy. And also, if I don't know the answer, it's good, because then I get to learn something new, you know, so I'm always down. But it's like I always tell everybody, just, you know, stay safe and keep prepping. And that's what it's all about. Just keep moving forward. And if we could do this together without talking down to other people and stuff, I think we can learn a lot and get a lot done and have a really good community. It's hard to build a community like this, so I'm always happy to come to places like this and build more.
Well, and that's, you know, one thing that I like about you, man, is that you've never, you know, taken one of my questions and been like, dude, why are you such an idiot? So
yeah, I mean, sometimes I got dumber questions than most of the time, you know, but that's why I know some of the things I know too, is because I was, you know, I asked those questions and found people who were willing to answer them and not make me feel stupid about it.
Well, and that's all we can ask for. So if you're cool with sticking around just a little bit after so we can chat, that would be awesome. And then, you know, like I said, anything you guys need, magicprepper.com. Thank you guys so much for being here tonight. I really enjoyed the chat. And, you know, I'll do my little ending thing, because that's what we do here. And that's going to be it for Magic Prepper.